for two. Kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two. Sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this. Multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh.
What is going on, guys? And welcome to episode 229 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I am your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. Follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We are here as part of the Going for Two Live network. We're live every Wednesday and Friday night on Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube, and all major podcast networks, and in the Going for Two app for iOS and Android. As you can see, we don't have our bells and whistles tonight. You get to see my lovely green screen in the back here. We had some issues with Skype, so I had to call an audible here. So we had to go use Restream really quick. So luckily we got on here and we're ready to go. I'm here as always with my co-hosts, as you can see on screen here, Tim and Gerson. What's up, guys?
What up? How you doing?
Yeah, man. Can't let those technical difficulties keep us down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, guys. I know it's later than normal than when we usually do this. It's 11:30, 11:45 almost on my time. It's a little bit earlier for y'all, but I know y'all are both had some long days at work. So let's go ahead and jump right into it.
The Weekly Rewind. Rewind.
All right, Tim, let me go to you first, man. How was your week 5?
Yeah, I didn't do so hot last week. I think last week we went through the show, and I put this on Twitter, man. If all the plays we talked about on the show hit, right? I said if you Cook's out, play Madison, play Henry, play Jamar Chase, play Devonta Adams, play Antonio Brown. We even had Jason telling us play Kadarius Toney. All the plays were right there, and I just tried to think too much about it. So I did okay in cash, but I kind of galaxy brain tournament, so ended up a little under even.
What about you, Gerson? How'd you do?
I did good. Herbert
Yeah,
took a lot of my GPP team. Especially I was all over Kadarius Toney. I had a lot of him. I think I had like 30% exposure to him on my 150. It's just he's a dynamic player. It's just I guess there was a lot of hate in the offseason, basically.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tim. I actually kind of had an off day. I will recommend or give some piece of advice here. If you're going to be playing DFS, do not plan to be at a pumpkin patch the day of the events, because I was out in the middle of nowhere in a pumpkin patch, and I had service, and I got the alert that Dalvin Cook was out. Unfortunately, DraftKings could not locate me, so I could not change any of my lineups. So I was pretty much stuck with what I had. I couldn't play the chalk, Madison play, which kind of screwed me a little bit. I wasn't able to pivot a few other things that I couldn't do, unfortunately, and just got stuck with what I had. And my lineup wasn't what I wanted it to be, and it turned out pretty bad. So,
if you watch the Sunday morning pregame show on the Going for Two network, I said it on there. Yeah, with this changes the whole slate. I'm gonna go pretty much all in on Alexander Madison. He's gonna be the best value of the whole slate. I mean, you could have probably done the same thing too, but I mean, if you're an experienced DFS player, of course you already know to do that, but not everybody is.
Yeah, no, I definitely knew to do it, and I just couldn't do it. It wouldn't let me. I kept trying. I was so pissed. My wife's like, put your phone away. We're at the pumpkin patch. And I'm like, I'm just trying to change my damn lineup for 5 seconds. Come on. But that shit
you should have gone to the porta potty at the Corn Belly.
Yeah. It wouldn't matter. DraftKings couldn't recognize where I was. It wouldn't recognize my location, so it wouldn't let me change anything. So I was pissed. I was able to change my season-long lineups because I had Dalvin Cook in a couple of them. because it doesn't need your location for that. But DraftKings needs your location, and they couldn't find me, so I got stuck. But it's week 6. The good thing about DFS, we put all that behind us. It's a new week. It's a new slate. We got a ton of games to talk about here. Actually, we have as few of the games as we've ever talked about all season. We've got games that are, we got the Sunday early morning game. We got teams on byes, of course, the Thursday and Monday night game. So there's not as many games as usual, but there are some good ones on this slate. So let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Let's talk quarterbacks.
All right, yeah, Tim kind of mentioned this a little bit off show that this slate is going to be pretty straightforward. A lot of the plays we have on our sheets pretty much match up across the board. So hopefully we're on the right plays here and we get you all the right information because we're all in the same plays. So Tim, I'm going to go to you first, man. Who do you have for some of your top-tier quarterbacks here?
Yeah, Jeff, well, as you know, for my plays, I like to take a look at Vegas totals. Highest Vegas total on the week is Kansas City at over 30 points, close to 31 points. So I think you can pay all the way up for Patrick Mahomes this week. I think it's going to be one of the most popular games on the slate. He obviously has a couple of very popular stacking options. I think there are great options to run it back on the other side. And I think that we've gotten some value open up that allows us to get all the way up for Mahomes if we want to. So I think that there's a lot of value in paying all the way up for Pat Mahomes this week. I think call it a narrative or whatever, but they're going to absolutely go crazy on that Washington defense. So I think a realistic possibility of this being a 40-point game, and that's what you want to pay up for.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. I got Mahomes on my list as well. This Washington defense, not what we all thought it was coming into the season. They've just been bleeding points and bleeding yards. So this, Kansas City offense is going to be pretty pissed off from their showing last week and is going to come out and take it out on the Washington football team. Gerson, let me go to you. Who do you have on your in your top tier here?
To add to Mahomes, to give you guys an idea, the Kansas City Patrick Mahomes gets the first down 46% of his passes. The Kansas City Chiefs are allowing a first down on 46% of the passes on pass attempts. So, in other words, that defense is like letting Patrick Mahomes be the other side, So that defense is horrible. Like, I can't even think of this team to be a Super Bowl contender right now because of how bad that defense is.
Yeah.
My top guy is one of the biggest themes on this week is the Monday night. What do you call it? The Monday night
price adjustment.
Yeah, the salary stayed the same and everything. And Lamar Jackson, 7,400. He's a dual threat quarterback, and now he's becoming more of a better passer. I mean, this season he already has 2 300-yard games. That's huge with the guy that has a 100-yard upside on rushing. I mean, he had a 4-touchdown game on Monday Night Football, and that was an awesome game. I don't know if you guys watched it, but that was awesome. He's still getting the rushing attempts too. He had 14 rushing attempts at 62 yards. And in this game environment, he's playing the Chargers. And now, like I said it last week, the Chargers defense might look good, but the reason why I was on Herbert, and this is the exact reason, pace of play. Both offense can move the ball like really, really well at a high efficiency. Not like they don't have to be like the greatest offense, like they have to be high efficiency. The Cleveland Browns were very highly efficiency. They're a very high efficiency offense, and so are the Ravens. They can score with the best of them. I love this game. I really going to be on Lamar, and his stacking is incredibly cheap. So I'm excited for him with Lamar being there. And of course, he's the only maybe 2 other guys on the whole. Well, they're not on the slate. It would be Jalen Hurts, and Kyler Murray's on there too. But Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, they can all get 300 yard and a 100-yard bonus. So rushing bonus.
Yep. I like that. And you called it last week because you said that game, with Herbert and Cleveland was going to be a shootout, even though it wasn't really, shown to be a shootout kind of game. And it definitely was. I mean, I think it was the highest scoring game, at least on that slate it was. So, yeah, good call on that for sure. The only other guy I have 2 on my list that we hadn't talked about. Murray, we just mentioned, against that same Cleveland team. Cleveland's really good against the run, not as good against the pass as we saw last week. I do think Murray will be what we thought Murray could be. I think last week he kind of struggled a little bit against the 49ers because it's a divisional game, but at 7.9 against Cleveland, I think he's good to go. And then Justin Herbert at 7.3, I think he's always in play. And, Mike Williams is questionable. I do think Mike Williams plays, but I do think Keenan Allen will also be involved there. So some good stacking options as well. And, of course, on Baltimore side, you got some good stacking options as well. So I love quarterbacks.
With the coach not coaching because of COVID-19, not worried about Kyler Murray?
No, I'm not really worried too much about it. I think the game plan is still already in place, and I think that they'll be just fine. I think Murray's one of those players too that you can game plan all you want, but Murray can just break out and take that off. Take it off and be what's the word I'm looking for? Very creative with the offense. So I do think he'll be fine at 7.9.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move down into the mid-tier. And once again, we got a couple guys that we're all on. And Gerson, I'll go to you. One in the mid-tier. Who do you got?
I have Mr. Joe Burrow, 6,300. He's coming in at 7% ownership. So, for me, it's just I think the Detroit Lions going to come out with a lot more fire this week. After seeing their coach cry like a big giant man that bites kneecaps, and I don't know, this guy's crazy, but he obviously has a lot of passing for the Lions. I think the Lions are going to be motivated to play very well, and I think this game can be a very sneaky shootout, kind of like a 28-27 or like a close game, and maybe it comes down to a field goal. But I like Joe Burrow. His stacking options are very cheap too. Detroit's one of the worst defense in the whole league. Basically, they're down there at the bottom. It's just, to me, 25-point total for the team through Vegas. So I think stack him with the stack, bring him back with one of our value plays that we're going to mention. But I just think Joe Burrow is I am a little worried about the throat contusion thing, but I don't think he's just going to sling it still. I mean, he had 281 yards last week and 348 the week before that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that call. I mean, I think Detroit, I just looked it up. They're 27th DVOA versus the pass, so they're definitely one of the worst defenses. 28 versus the run, so they're not good at either one of those things.
No.
So
yeah, and they actually give up the most passing yards on deep attempts of anybody in the league, and Joe Burrow loves to throw it deep as well, so he can hit them right where it hurts.
Good call. Yeah. Tim, what do you have in your mid?
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the other guy I have here, and that's Matt Stafford. This is one of my absolute favorite games on the week. I feel like I'm going to end up having every player in this game on the Rams side because high total, as Gerson talked about, this is another high-paced game. They're actually two of the highest-paced teams on the slate, and they're playing each other. So I think that there are going to be a lot of opportunities. Obviously, the other big thing, which we'll talk about later, is that one of the Rams players looks like he's going to be pretty chalky. And so I'm going to go the other way and play the passing game with Matt Stafford. So he's probably going to be my highest owned quarterback this week, at least as of right now.
Yep, I like it. And the only other guy I had on my list is Kirk Cousins at 6.2. He's more of a pivot than he is anything else because I think Burrow will be the more chalkier mid-tier play. But Cousins at 6.2, I mean, this was supposed to be a run-first offense. We haven't really seen that happen too much lately. I mean, they've been passing the ball like crazy. Justin Jefferson's getting his. Adam Thielen had some really big games as well. Even Dalvin Cook.
I actually saw earlier they only have one rushing touchdown on the year.
Wow,
one.
That's crazy for a quote unquote running first team. So, Cousins at 6.2. It's a tough matchup. The Panthers have a pretty decent defense, but I do think that the Vikings are good enough to overcome that defense and still put some good points on the board. All right, let's move down into the value tier, and Tim, I'll go to you first this time.
Yeah, well, the week is finally here, Jeff. You've been waiting. You've been telling us every week to play this guy, and the week to play this guy is finally here. So I'm going to talk about instead my brother from another mother, Carson Wentz. He plays against the terrible Houston Texans defense this week. One of the highest totals on the week. And everybody is, again, probably going to play another guy in this game. So I'm going to pivot and play the passing game. I think that there are some really solid options to stack him with. He's really cheap at 5,400, and he's got some cheap, like I said, stacking option as well. So I think you could set up a cheap Carson Wentz stack and be able to fit in a lot of the other high price players that we're going to talk about later. So this is obviously purely GPP and not a cash game play by any means, but I think Houston gives up enough yards that he could end up being viable.
Yeah, I think Wentz also was a victim, so to speak, of the Monday night game. You know, he put up 400 points and 400 yards and 2 touchdowns.
400 points, holy shit!
Amazing, but
That
no,
would be amazing.
last week, you know, his price wasn't adjusted at all to account for that kind of passing volume. So I do think at 5.4, you know, versus Houston, like we mentioned, is a pretty good play.
Yeah, I actually thought the total seemed really high at 27 points, and then I looked it up, and Houston is averaging giving up 28 points a game. So if they just give up their average, they're right there.
They're right there, exactly. Gerson, who do you have on your value list here?
Well, are you going to talk about him or do you want me to talk about him?
No, you can talk about it. I want to hear you talk about it. I talk about him enough.
Hey, I've never said that he's a bad quarterback. I just said that there's weeks that you can play him, weeks you can't play him.
Yeah,
I wasn't gonna play him last week. That's for sure against the New Orleans defense.
Yeah, that's playing, but I played him in.
Taylor Heineke, Kansas City defense is horrible. They're ranked 31st in DVOA, 31st in DVP. They just suck. Like if there's like a logo you can put across the whole defense, they suck. That's it. And they're still hurting. Like they're still hurting on defense. I think Chris Jones is out, right? Like their pass rush is not there no more. And I really love this game environment. I'm telling you guys right now, everybody's gonna play this game. Everybody. They're gonna have pieces of this game. This is gonna be the highest owned game. Right now he's coming in at almost 8% ownership. And just give you an idea, Patrick Mahomes' ownership is coming at 11%. So they're both in top 5 in ownership. So that game's going to be owned so much. But 5,800, that's so cheap for a quarterback who has this ceiling for 25 points this week. I don't think Kansas City's defense is great. And Heineke's going to have to stream it with Patrick Mahomes on the other side. And I've always said this, quarterback, like if those top projected quarterbacks are correlated with the opposite side. Like last week, Herbert was up there for me. And all of a sudden, Baker had a good game, you know? So, like, it's just it's the way it correlates game. Like, I tell people correlation is very key in GPP, and some people don't do it enough. And I know it's kind of weird saying quarterback, but if Mahomes goes off, Heineke's going to go off, you know? So, I really like Heineke a lot this week.
Yeah, agreed. The only thing I'm going to keep an eye on is...
Hey, I told y'all, Kadarius Toney last week. Kadarius Toney, sick call. I told y'all.
We already gave you your props, Jason. One thing I will keep an eye on with Heineke, though, is McLaurin had an injury pop up to the hamstring injury, but kind of limits his stacking options there because I don't know what other receiver you'd stack him with that you're really going to feel comfortable with. But McLaurin, keep an eye on him being questionable.
I do have the stat, though. Kansas City has allowed teams to go over their Vegas projected total in every game this year. And they're allowing more teams to go above it than any other team in the league. So,
wow. That is not good. It's not good for us. It's good for
us. That's right.
All right. That's really it that I got for the value in there. I threw in a little joke there, Mac Jones. I was wrong. I will admit it. I was wrong last week, guys. I'm sorry. It was more of a GPP play anyway, but Mac Jones did not.
Yeah, don't play him this week either.
Yeah, definitely don't play him this week. No, definitely not. All right. Let's get to tight ends.
Did somebody say tight ends?
All right, in the top tier, we all have one guy, and it's the same guy. Tim, we always talk about him, so let me let Gerson talk about him a little bit.
Travis Kelsey. What was crazy is that his price is broken, man. Like 7,000. I mean, this guy should be priced 8,000 this week at least, you know. In this game environment, like it's gonna be a repetitive theme. Like I'm gonna be telling you guys, a lot of our plays are coming from this game. But Travis Kelce gets the Washington football team. They rank 16th in DVOA versus the tight end. And I mean, with Travis Kelce, it don't matter what your ranking is. He's still gonna get his touches. He's gonna get his target. This game can take a big hit if Tyreek Hill is out and if McLaurin is out.
Yeah.
But then again, it's going to help the bigger weapons like Kelsey, Ricky Seals-Jones Jr., I guess. There's other little names for Washington football team. Maybe they're not big as Kelsey, but if Kelsey is Tyreek is out, Kelsey's going to be like a pretty sure lock play for the week.
I don't get why he's so cheap. I mean, he's the cheapest he's been all
No,
year.
they're messing with us. Like, I feel like every once in a while, DraftKings praises somebody like this just to be like, I dare you not to play him. Yeah. And that's what this week. It's I dare you not to play Travis Kelsey.
It's crazy.
And the crazy thing is like, I mentioned this earlier, this is week 6. Not one time this year have I really been tempted to play 2 tight ends. But this week, I'm really tempted to play 2 tight ends. Man, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but the other guy we're going to talk about here, Mark Andrews, is another victim of that Monday night reprice. He's coming in at 5,200. He probably would have been at least $6K if that game would have been on Sunday. And as we mentioned earlier, like, there's also Travis Kelsey. So how do you decide how you want to start your lineups this week? You go Kelsey. Can you play them both? Do you have to pick one or the other? I think this whole week, that's one of the biggest decisions you have to make.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there. Yeah, Andrews had his big game there. I mean, it was a huge game for a tight end. But, yeah, he's definitely in play for sure. All right, let's move down into the mid-tier. And, Tim, we'll stay with you because Gerson just has Mark Andrews listed as his mid-tier guys, and you got a couple guys we haven't talked about yet. So talk about your mid-tiers.
I do. I'll just talk about him real quick. First one is Dalton Schultz. This guy just continues to produce every week for Dallas. They continue to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. They have Blake Jarwin doing a lot of the blocking. This guy may not be fast, but he finds his way open, especially near the end zone, and that's what you're looking for a tight end. And then another guy that's running an absurd amount of routes and is on a lot of snaps is Tyler Higbee. I mentioned earlier I want to target the Rams game a lot. New York Giants are terrible against the tight end, and he's in that range where nobody's going to play him. Gerson kind of talked about it earlier, Ricky Seals-Jones. I think everybody's either going to pay all the way up or all the way down at tight end again this week. So if you pay for one of these guys here in the mid-range, you can get a lot of leverage in tournaments because I don't think they'll have a lot of ownership.
Yep, 100% agree there. The only one that I had that we hadn't talked about yet is Noah Fant at 4.8. I agree. I think it's a pay up or pay down, so I won't have a ton of Fant. But Las Vegas is, I believe, 25th DVOA versus the tight end. So at 4.8, I think Fant can still be a viable tight end. But again, I think I'm either going to pay up for Kelsey or pay down to one of these cheap options. What you already mentioned, Ricky Seals-Jones, but go ahead and talk about him a little bit, Gerson.
Yeah, Ricky Seals-Jones. If I could do the noise, I would, but they have like an inside joke, like a steel joke. It's funny. I love fantasy football. Those guys are awesome. They're also awesome for the community, so shout out to them. Yeah, Rico Seals-Jones Jr. I mean, this guy, he was like, Jeff knows this because we played Dynasty, but he was actually like an athletic tight end on the up and coming. We were hoping he would break out, and it never worked out for him. But it's actually starting to work out right now as a backup for my boy Logan Thomas. But last week he got 8 targets, 5 receptions, 41 yards, and he was getting targeted in the red zone. That's what we want out of tight end, red zone targets. Those are important. Against Kansas City, $3,000. That's cheap. You can do a lot with that. And this week, you're going to find a lot of stud plays that you're going to want to play. Running back is very interesting, but I think it's pretty straightforward. But he's going to be at 9% ownership. I mean, to give you an idea, the top 3 guys that we talked about, Kelsey, 15%. Mark Andrews, 13%. RSJ, 9.2. So I think if you're going to build a tight end pool, these are the 3 guys you want to have.
That's the 3. Yep, 100% agree with that. The only guy I want to throw into the hat there is Alley Cox, who's come on a little bit lately. He's got.
You want Mo Cox? Is that what you want, Jeff?
Yep, Alley Cox. He had 4 targets last week, 5 the week before that, 50 yards and 42 yards, so almost 100 yards in the last 2 games, which isn't great, but he's got those red zone targets that we love. He had 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago, so he's a huge tight end. He could definitely get those red zone targets again. More of a pivot off of RSJ at 3.1 than really something that I want to pay a lot for, but Houston's also really bad against the tight end position as well.
Yeah,
so
we're going to target them every single week.
Jeff has a love for this guy, too. Yeah. Jeff has a love for this guy.
I do. I have an affinity for Alley Cox.
So I looked this up when I was doing my research. 3 of the worst teams against tight ends are all in the AFC South, right? It's the Jaguars, the Colts, and the Houston Texans. So those are all going to be the teams we're going to be picking on all year long against tight ends. So I like that Alley Cox call.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, if you look at the positional DVOA, I think they're actually pretty decent against receivers and running backs. The tight end position is one that they really, really struggle at. So I think it'll be sort of funneled into that tight end position there. All right, let's go ahead and get to the running backs.
It's time for running backs. Running backs.
All right, so let's look at this top tier here. And Tim, I'll go to you first because you only have one guy in your top tier here. Talk about Mr. Austin Eckler.
I do. It's a weird week, man. So a couple days ago, when you first looked at the slate for running backs, every single guy was questionable. It was literally Q, right? So there's no Dalvin Cook. We got news that Christian McCaffrey is not going to play. So the top guy on the slate for me is Austin Eckler, right? This is a guy that's in one of the highest total games of the week. We know Baltimore gives it up to running backs, particularly pass-catching running backs. And this guy has already shown that he can pay off on volume alone. So, I mean, I think that he's got an upside on this slate that very few guys do. And he's also one of the only guys on this slate that I think can pay off on volume alone. Obviously he got 2 touchdowns last week, but his upside is incredible. So I love him at 8K. And I don't think he'll be as popular as he normally would be because of all of the guys in the mid-range people want to play.
Yeah, definitely agree there. And just to expand on your all those guys being questionable, I'm gonna tell my sob story one more time. My main dynasty league, I have David Montgomery, who's out, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's out. I had Cam Akers, who obviously is out for the season. I have Christian McCaffrey, who is out, and I have Nick Chubb, who is out. I am literally starting Gary Brightwell for the Giants this week in my dynasty league. So it's a brutal week for running backs for sure. All right, Gerson, you got 2 guys on your top tier here. Give me your guys.
That's what happens to being cocky, you fuck.
Yes. My team. I got George Kittle too, and he's also out. My team is like decimated.
Check the chat, please, on Rescreen. I love the Austin Eckler card. The only reason why I didn't have him on my sheet is because I'm going with a very different approach this week at running back. I'm basically going in the mid-tier, and my elite running back top tier, and I put him in there, is Jonathan Taylor. I love Jonathan Taylor in real life, real fantasy football. Everybody knows I love this guy. I think he's a beast. So seeing him go for 116 yards and a touchdown receiving on Monday Night Football was awesome. But to me, it's just more volume. He's going to get a lot of volume. This defense, Houston ranked 30th in DVOA against the run or against running back. And Jonathan Taylor, Houston is bad, but we can see that they can compete. So that's what we want, when people say, "Oh, they're gonna blow them out," I'm like, I don't want that. I want a competitive game because that means it'll be a faster pace. It'll be back and forth, and it won't just be a boring game. I love Jonathan Taylor, and with him this week, I think he's gonna be my top play. 6,600 is a great value for him. To give you guys an idea, again, I know, like I said, I love him this week, and he comes ranked. He's my highest projected running back, and that's 4 more points than Austin Eckler, who's next.
Yeah, wow. I love it. I too have Austin Eckler. He's my one of my top plays there, so I'm not gonna say anything negative about that. But the only other guy I have here is Dalvin Cook. He's actually off the injury report completely. He's not questionable or anything. He will definitely play. Hopefully, get a full workload. 7.7 is the cheapest he's been all season. So I think this is a decent matchup against Carolina. They do struggle a little bit against the run. They're 12th DVOA compared to 2nd DVOA versus the pass. So Dalvin Cook, I think, could be viable at 7.7. But Eckler's my favorite play by far on the slate as far as running backs go, except for the next guy we're about to talk about in the mid-tier here. And Gerson, I'll go to you to talk about Mr. Kareem Hunt. I think he's going to be one of the more popular plays on the slate.
Yeah, if there was ever a week you're going to go out and buy Hunt ketchup, it's this week, baby. Kareem Hunt, he is going to be the most owned running back this week. Kareem Hunt, and I feel like we're falling into a trap because we kind of did last year where Chubb was out and we were like, oh my gosh, let's play him. But I think this year is different because he was already doing great.
Yep.
I mean, when I found out, I was listening to a podcast and they said that he was a top 5 running back. I'm like, he is? And yeah, well, he's doing amazing this year. Kareem Hunt to me is just, it's like I tell people, with no Nick Chubb, that's huge. Obviously, if you haven't followed, but Nick Chubb's not playing this game, guys. So, but with Kareem Hunt, his price is there. The volume's going to be there. I do think Demetrius Felton will go into the receiving workload and it will lighten up Kareem Hunt, because Demetrius Felton is actually a wide receiver and running back combo.
Yep.
So to me, he's going to be the highest owned running back. I'm going to have him everywhere. Right now, ownership hasn't updated. They have him at 7%. I expect him to be within the 19 to 20% range when it comes to Sunday. To me, it's Kareem Hunt, Taylor. They're going to be right up there. DVOA is not great, which is 13th versus the Arizona Cardinals, but something's got to give in this game, and I don't know which way it's going to go, but I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt. I'm telling you guys, Taylor, Kareem Hunt are going to be 1A, 1B, and there's a couple other running backs which are the cheap running backs, but I'll tell you how I feel about them later.
All right, so let's go to you, Tim. What do you got for your mid-tier guys?
Yeah, so Cleveland is actually third on the Cleveland is third in terms of adjusted line yards, second on this slate, as the Bucs are not on slate, but the first team on this slate in terms of adjusted line yards is the Los Angeles Rams. I mentioned earlier about Darrell Henderson. I think he's going to be incredibly popular. I think before the Hunt news came out today, I think him and JT were kind of the chop combo. Now I think it's going to be a lot more people pivoting to Hunt, but I think Henderson is still in an excellent spot. Giants bottom 5 against the run. They give him basically all of the usage. They give him a ton of work inside the red zone. I mean, just everything lines up for him. They're huge favorites against the Giants. Everything just works out for him to be have a huge week, and he's only $6K. So he's right on the edge of he's cheaper than every other guy we have here in the mid tier. And like I said, after the Hunt news today, I don't think he'll be nearly as popular as he would have been 2 days ago.
Yeah, I like it. I got Henderson on my list as well. Obviously, I have Kareem Hunt as well. The only other guy we hadn't talked about, and he's more, again, as a pivot. I think I'm being left with more of the pivot plays than I am the actual chalk plays. But Chuba Hubbard at 5.9. I think he's a decent play. CMC is going to be out. Minnesota's 20th DVOA versus the run. But again, not someone I'm going to have a ton of exposure to. Tim, you got a couple guys that we hadn't talked about yet, Mixon and Swift. Give me some quick thoughts about
Yeah,
those.
I see Gerson's got him too, but I'll talk about him. They're obviously on both sides of that Detroit-Cincinnati game. Detroit is one of the worst teams in the league against running backs. If Joe Mixon was ever going to have a big week, this is the week. And Cincinnati is, I actually think, the worst team in the league against pass-catching running backs. It's either them or the Ravens. But either way, this looks like a great week for Swift, because we expect the Lions are probably going to be down in this game, having to throw to catch up. Their receiving core is absolutely terrible. Hawkinson has not played well. Deandre Swift is basically carrying that offense right now. So I think the puzzle pieces kind of fit together for him to have a huge week. And like I said, he won't be nearly as popular, at least I don't think he will be, as some of the other guys we've talked about.
Gerson, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, well, I know that Jeff goes to Tim. I'm starting to pick up on it just so it can be short and sweet. Well, sorry. But no, wanted to add that Zach Taylor said that Joe Mixon should get the full workload. So we're going back to, he's going to be the monster that he's supposed to be until he breaks his fingernail or something. And then DeAndre Swift, Hawkinson is questionable. Yeah. If he's out, DeAndre Swift is going to get peppered with targets, probably 10 targets in this game, with no Quentin Cephas, no Hawkinson. I mean, I can't even name the backup tight end for the Lions. So, if that tells you anything. I don't know if Tyrell Williams is supposed to be coming back, but if he doesn't come back, I mean, that's just going to be pepper target to DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, because that passing, they were already bad to begin with, and now they're even worse. Without Tyrell Williams, without Cephas, who do they have left? I mean, it's Trinity Benson, I think, is their number one receiver.
And Jamal Williams is limited, but I expect that he will play, but I don't think it matters really.
Yep.
they're still going to give Swift his targets.
Oh, that matters a lot. If Jamal Williams out, that matters a lot.
Well, I know, but I'm saying that I don't think it matters in this instance. Like I think he's still going to get. Yeah. No, obviously, if he's out, I mean, he's a lock button.
All right, let's move down into the value tier here, and Gerson, I'll go to you first. Give me some of your favorite values.
We did skip over Ezekiel Elliott. He's a great player this week. So I'm gonna tell you guys what I'm gonna do at running back. I'm not gonna have a ton of exposure to the value running back, like the cheap running back we're about to mention. The reason why, because I don't think it's needed. I want volume. I want like production, and like while Devontae Booker is facing the Rams, they have a pretty good defense, and you know they're gonna pressure the shit out of Daniel Jones, and you know this game could get ugly very quick. Daryl Williams, yeah, he's gonna get the workload. He's gonna be the guy. You know, 76% when he was in 76% of the snap when CH went out. Cool. But it's Daryl Williams, guys.
Yeah, I don't the love there with Daryl Williams. I mean, if CEH wasn't great, you know, he wasn't playing great to begin with. Daryl Williams was playing behind him. What do we think that he's going to do? I don't get the love there. I mean, I guess he could fall into the end zone a couple times and pay off value, but I'm not going to have a ton of him either.
Yeah, and Khalil, I know I'm mentioning all these running backs, but Khalil Herbert, yeah, okay, but to me, that 29 CBOA does kind of interest me against the Green Bay Packers. They're a very bad run defense.
Yeah,
he's gonna get all the ball.
What worries me about him is that he doesn't catch passes, and I think the game script is going to be such that they're going to have him off the field, right? So he's actually my least favorite. Like I know everybody says Khalil Herbert is the clear guy if you're paying down, but I would rather play Darrell Williams, honestly. But I agree with what you said earlier, G. I think there's enough value on the slate that you can find your way to one of the 6K guys, especially if you're considering Booker, right? Like if you're looking at Booker at 5,400, I beg you to find the other 600 to at least get up to Henderson, because I think it's going to be much better on the week.
Well, the way I look at it like this: Darrell Henderson, Jonathan Taylor, Deandre Swift, Kareem Hunt, Joe Mixon, all these guys from the 6,000 to about 6,600, if I'm correct. All these guys are proven commodity. They're gonna get touches. They're gonna get the workload, and you're gonna pay down for guys that are these guys. Do these guys have the upside that Alexander Madison had last week?
No, I agree 100% with that. Real quick, we had a question I wanted to put up on the screen here from Alex. He's asking about potentially playing Swift and Mixon. Is that a negative correlation, or because they both catch passes that we think that they're both viable to play?
It's viable. In that game environment, it's viable. And one of my favorite stats of the week is Swift and that Detroit Lions defense. Spoiler alert, sorry. So I mean it's viable. I think over the year I've been getting a little bit different, and we've seen it this year where people don't usually GPP tournaments are starting to win with a one quarterback or with a stack, but with no run backs, or you know they put two running backs in the same game environment because they're elite running backs. You know, you got to be different out there. So I don't mind Alex.
Yeah, agreed.
The only thing that worries me is that they are two of the slowest paced teams. The Bengals are actually the slowest paced team. So the only thing that worries me is if Mixon is successful and they're able to run out the clock, Detroit Lions may not have a lot of time on offense, in which Swift would basically have to catch every pass to be viable. So that's the only issue I have, but I do think it's possible for both of them to go off in that game.
Agreed. There is one running back that's in that sort of 5K and below range that I will play if one of the other running backs is ruled out, and that's Javonte Williams. If Melvin Gordon is out, which he is questionable currently, if he's out, I think I like Javonte Williams of all the running backs we just mentioned. He catches passes. If he gets the workload, he's been more efficient than Melvin Gordon when he's gotten the touches. It's just the fact that they're splitting the workload. If he gets the full workload at 5K, I will have a bunch of Williams in my lines for sure.
Yeah, I like that call.
Javonte.
All right. Anybody else that we didn't mention? I did have A.J. Dillon down there as well. He's been sort of splitting carries there with Aaron Jones. I don't love the call, but I think he's gotten, 16 touches and 12 touches in the last couple of games. And that offense, he to the end zone at 4.9 as well.
Not for me.
All right, to the receivers.
And now, wide receivers.
All right, Gerson, let's go to you. Once again, we got tons of receivers to talk about here, so let's give us some of your top tiers.
So, Keenan Allen is my favorite wide receiver player of the whole slate. Like, better than Adams, better than Tyreek, better than all these guys. I think I'm going to get him at lower ownership because of the Mike Williams factor. But if Mike Williams is out.
If Mike Williams is out, you think it changes his ownership? It might not change.
It will. He'll be one of the highest owned players on the slate if Mike Williams is out. Again, tune in on Sunday for the Sunday pregame show with Gladys, Hamid, Eric, Evan. Jesus, man, we have you added 3 more people. What the hell, dude? No, it's a cool show, but just tune in and I'll give you guys the answer to the test. But of course, injuries are huge. We saw it last week with Alexander Madison. So let's say Mike Williams is out, right? Keenan Allen is going to go straight up to the top. He's 6,400, I believe, right? Where am I? 6,400?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
6,400. But to me, it's just the last time he was priced so low, he had a hell of a game. I remember this clearly too, because it was last year, and it was week 3 against the Carolina Panthers. He was 6,100. It's Keenan Allen, guys. It's Keenan Allen, and he went for 34 points, 19 targets, 13 receptions, 132 yards, and a touchdown. So when he's cheap, you might want to get some exposure to him. But to me, is this game, we saw what happened on Monday Night Football with the Baltimore Ravens. So let's say the same thing happened, whether if Baltimore falls behind or if Chargers fall behind. One of the two is going to give. And to me, Keenan Allen at that price, I love him this week. I just have a really – it is kind of like the Herbert scene of last week. I have a strong – everything's there for me. And Keenan Allen is going to smash this week.
All right. I love it.
Man, we got to lock him in now, don't we, Jeff?
Yes, definitely. All right, Tim, you want to talk about your boy?
I will talk quickly about Devonta Adams. I mean, obviously, he was the play to have last week. He had that huge game, and he has owned the Chicago Bears across his career. But I'm going to save $1,100 this week, and I'm going to go down to Cooper Kupp. Last week, we saw was the Robert Woods game. They purposely force-fed him the ball against Seattle. They're going to go right back to Cooper Kupp this week. His usage is still elite, and his matchup against the Giants basically couldn't be better. They can't cover slot receivers. I expect him to get 10-plus targets again. You get that savings over Devonta Adams and access to what I think is probably the best game on the weekend. So I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are going to be playing Darrell Henderson. I think that's for good reason. But I'm going to pay up, and I'm going to play Cooper Kupp as my wide receiver 1.
I like it. I have Adams and Kupp in my thing as well, and I should have had Keenan Allen. I don't know how I missed him, but 6.4 is an excellent price for Keenan Allen. I also have DJ Moore, who I think people will be down on a little bit after last week. He was not targeted as much as he had been targeted all season. I think they go back to that at 7.3 versus Minnesota, which is pretty high.
Squeaky wheel this week.
Yep, 100% at 7.3. And Jamar Chase, I mean, how do you not play this guy? I mean, this guy.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah.
Imagine thinking he couldn't catch a football.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or no, what do you say? The laces are different.
Yeah. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it's
no problem.
No problem.
He was just fucking with us, right?
He was 100%. No, 100%. He was trolling the entire football community, and I love it. But I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about Joe Burrow. Let me fix that. Joe Burrow. No team gives up more deep passes than the Detroit Lions. It's exactly no wide receiver has more catches of more than 15 yards this year than Jamar Chase. All the puzzle pieces fit together. He's 6,700. You're going to have to pay up for him, but I think he's got almost as much upside as anybody else on the slate. So, I mean, we saw in the same spot, Marquis Brown had not one, not two, but three long drops for touchdowns. If Jamar just catches two of those three, he pays off this price and more.
I thought you were going to go LeBron. Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, 7 championships.
All right. Let's see. Anybody else we haven't talked about yet? I know we put McLaurin down on here. We talked about him a little bit already. He's questionable, but definitely.
I think if he plays, you play him. Kansas City is terrible against wide receiver. Gerson mentioned earlier, their defense is absolutely terrible. Again, this guy is, like I said about Adams last week, he does not have 2 bad weeks in a row. So I think that McLaurin, I think we talked about the roller coaster. He's been really good in week 2 and week 4. If that keeps up, he's going to be really good in week 6. And hopefully if that questionable tag stays until Sunday morning, it might take some people off of him. But everything I've read says it was a veteran day for rest and that he should be good to go.
All right.
Hey, Red Moss 76. Thanks, man. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, man, this is what we do here, man. Congratulations on your 200 points. Just keep at it, man. Keep it up. We mentioned Tyreek Hill, right? Like, and it's obvious, you know. If he plays, you play him. But he is expensive, though. He is fucking 8,500, dude. That's a lot.
Yeah. A lot. You have D-Hop in there real quick, Tim. You want to mention D-Hop real quick?
I do, and I'll tell you why I did this, is that Cleveland is giving up a ton of points to that alpha prototypical X receiver, right? That's how you attacked him. Last week it was Mike Williams. This week I think it's DeAndre Hopkins. He hasn't had that kind of blow-up game here in a couple weeks, but we know he has that 30-point upside. Again, he was questionable, but I think he got a full practice in today. We know Hopkins throughout his career has not needed to practice and then has showed up in the game. So I just think that this is a week where everybody's going to look past him. And one of the reasons I like him, which we haven't really talked much about, is the afternoon games this week kind of suck. And so I usually like to have exposure.
There's 3 of them.
Yeah, there's only 3, and one of them is Dallas, New England, just because they know people will watch that game, right? So you're either going to be playing Arizona, Cleveland, and I think that that's where I'm going to try and get some exposure here. So I do think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be much lower owned than he should be in this spot.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of why I was asking about him, because he will be lower owned. He hasn't been the D-Hop that we've known. I think Murray's spreading the ball around a ton, but I do think, like you mentioned,
did you see that catch though?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, dude! He had the best hand in the NFL, right? Him with Devonta Adams.
Yep.
Yeah. And one thing we know, Gerson, is that he doesn't need Coach Cliff to tell him to throw the ball to Hopkins. So if all else fails, he'll just resort back to that game plan.
100%. All right, let's move down into the mid-tier. Gerson, who do you have in your mid-tier that you like?
I think we're all going to be on him. It's just we have a lot of mid-tier plays too, but to me, Jamar Chase is 7,100, but it's cheaper than all the other guys that we mentioned. But
700, right?
Chase is 6,700.
6,700?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I might have been looking at FanDuel pricing then. But to me, it's Marquis Brown. Jeff just got a boner for me to mention that, by the way, guys. No lie, like, you better cover that shit up with a blanket. But Marquis Brown, man, this guy pisses me off. This guy pisses me off. Like, I honestly think I'm so annoyed by him. Like, he's so inconsistent. He's always injury prone. But I already know Jeff is going to come in. Yeah, but in the last 25 games, he's done this, done that. Gee, did you know that in the last 12 games, he has this many market share targets and everything? And I'm going to be like, cool stats, bro, cool stats. But did you know that Marquis Brown can, out of nowhere, pull a hamstring, and next thing you know, you're fucked? But, no, he's proven it now for, like, what, the last 12 games, I guess Jeff would say. Yep. But I'm back on him. I have to eat crow when I have to eat crow, and I'm gonna have to feed Jeff when I lose a bet if I lose it. But Marquis Brown, he's tearing it up like Tim said earlier on. If he didn't, not 1, not 2, not 3, he would have been like the highest owned wide receiver this week. And the biggest thing out of everything he's done: 36 points on Monday Night Football, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10 targets, 9 receptions. Dude, that price incredible.
Yeah.
In that game environment, incredible. 5,900. That's a hell of a value. You can run it back with my boy Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I like it.
See where I'm going with this? But I love Marquis Brown this week. But to me, that's it. I can't give no more compliment, guys. I'm going to have to shut off the stream. I'm leaving because Jeff is just going to say, I told you.
Oh, wow, he really left. No, my favorite wide receiver in the mid-tier this week is not Hollywood Brown. It's Mr. Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks last week played against the New England Patriots, and we know Bill Belichick says, I'm going to take your best player out of the game. And so this week, I think that they go right back to Brandon Cooks. He's the only guy in the mid-range that has close to a 30% market share. And Indy is the worst or bottom 3 in the league against covering wide receivers. They're really bad against wide receivers and tight ends. I don't think that Houston's Pharaoh Cooper is any real going to take any targets away from Brandon Cooks here. It's going to be the Brandon Cooks show. I think he seriously could project for 10 targets. And at 5,800, that's just way, way, way too cheap. So I just feel like he's the guy that you want to have in the mid-range this week.
Agreed. And just so I can give my stat that Gerson sort of poo-pooed.
Oh, my God. There you go. I'm out. I'm leaving.
in the last 12 games, going back to last year, only 3 players have more points than Hollywood Brown: Devonta Adams, Stephon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill. That's it. That's 12 games is a pretty good sample size. So I love me some Hollywood Brown. I'm gonna get me a lunch out of it too, because me and Gerson got a bet. So I'm loving the way he's playing right now. All right, the only other guy that I want to talk about is the guy opposite of the Cooks call that you just mentioned, and that's Pittman. If we're playing Carson Wentz, I think Pittman is the stack option with him at 5.5 against Houston. Pittman has come on really strong this year. Second-year player he's looked really, really good. So at 5.5, I do think he's a viable stack option. If you're going to stack that game at all with Cooks and Wentz, and Pittman is a pretty good play there. All right, let's look at the value tier. Gerson, since you're the only one on the screen. Oh, there's Tim. Let's go to you, Gerson, with some of the value guys.
Sorry, I got distracted. I want to give a shout out to Jacoby Myers, Michael Pittman, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney. All those guys are great players to mention. I don't know why you skip so much to go down to value, but I guess in a time constraint. If Tyreek Hill is out, and I hate to say this because I fucking hate this guy so much, but he is basically the replacement for Tyreek Hill. Basically, when Sammy Watkins was out, it would be DeMarcus Robinson coming in for him. When Tyreek Hill was out, it would be Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman would be the guy that's going to get basically all the workload or target or whatever we want to call it. But this game's going to shoot out. That defense is horrible, and he's 4,200. I don't love it, but right now, in my models, and I'm like gulping before I say this because it's kind of nerve-wracking, he's coming at almost 13 points.
Wow.
So that's very high. Last week, he had 12 targets. I bet y'all didn't know that, did you? 12 targets for 9 receptions, 76 yards. And if Tyreek is out, same kind of game environment. Buffalo scored, Washington's going to score, So Mecole Hardman, 4,200. Right now, he's coming at 6% ownership. If Tyreek is out, he's going to come up to probably 15. So I know it's the weird thing is Washington. Well, it's not the weird. Washington ranked 32nd in DVOA versus the wide receivers. So I'm going to have a lot of Mecole Hardman. He's probably going to be one of my top value players. But yeah,
I love it. Yeah, I love that call there. And I didn't realize he had 12 targets last week. You're right. I mean, I watched that game, and I don't even remember him being targeted that much. So that's a good
nobody does.
All right, Tim, what do you got?
Gerson quickly mentioned one of the guys I had who's kind of a borderline value play. That's Sterling Shepard. He'll be back this week. Obviously, he's been out the last couple of weeks, which is why he gets that 5,000 price tag. I like him already, but because we know Saquon's going to be out, we know Galladay's going to be out, and we're just waiting on the Slayton news. If Slayton is out, I think Shepard becomes my favorite wide receiver in this range. I love the Hardman call. Obviously, if Tyreek out, he is a lock button. But I'm going to go with a guy that's been surprising me how well he's played this year, and that's Darnell Mooney. I think that the Packers showed last week that they are susceptible to the deep ball, and that's obviously a lot of the routes that he's been running. And he seems to have a bit of a connection with Justin Fields. Either that or he just has no connection with Allen Robinson. I'm not quite sure. But either way, Mooney, you get, I think, a $900 discount at $4,300. And one thing we've talked about is I don't think that there are a lot of value wide receivers this week that I think that you can feel good about. I guess Hardman would be if Tyreek was out. But I think Mooney is somebody that you can put in there and know that he's going to get you at least, say, 8 to 10 points. But he's got that 20-plus point upside that you're looking for somebody in this range. So I hate going against my Packers, but I think that this is a legit value.
All right, I like that call there, and I got one. You erased it off your list there, Tim. I don't know. Did you change your mind? I don't know. Did you change your mind on Mr. Rondell Moore? Rondell Moore at 4.6 against Cleveland. I think this Rondell Moore last week against who did they play last week? The Cardinals played. Can't think of who they played right now. Let me look up his game stat real quick. But he actually had,
Moore?
Yeah, who did the Cardinals play last week?
They played your 49ers.
They played
49ers.
I forgot. I blocked it out. But he had
early onset Alzheimer's here.
He had the same amount of snaps as Christian Kirk for the first time all season. I do think that they're going to get him more and more involved as the season goes on. And like I mentioned earlier, Cleveland is not as good against the pass as they are against the run. So I think Moore is going to continue to get those targets. I also have one other guy that I wanted to mention, and I mentioned him pretty much on the last 3 or 4 shows, and his price hasn't really changed much. And that's Hunter Renfrow at 4.9. I mean, this guy just he's getting a ton of targets. He's one of those guys that are just hard to defend in the middle of the field. He's got the short area quickness. He's going to get those targets from Derek Carr. His price hasn't changed much in the last 3 weeks at 4.9. I think he's still going to be a viable high floor, low ceiling kind of player at 4.9. And then there's one more guy, and Gerson, you have him on your list as well, so I'll let you talk about him, Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, isn't that a tongue twister sometimes? Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, this guy was a 4th-round wide receiver. He should have been probably a 2nd-rounder, but there was a lot of worries about his athleticism, which I don't see the worry because I think he's actually he reminds me more of like a Juju Smith-Schuster, very good route running wide receiver. Maybe he's not the elite athleticism, but we've seen wide receivers in the NFL that are not super elite athletes. Like, I don't think people realize that the NFL is just a pass friendly. They just pass a lot, and you're gonna have to pass a lot in this game. To me, that price, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I said it early on. The guy that I'm gonna bring them back with. Basically in that game was going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. At that price, and I just typed it in, and apparently 4,200 to get it with Joe Burrow, stack it with Higgins, Chase, and bring it back with him. I mean, that game environment, to me, is one of the games I'm going to be targeting. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to that game. There's basically 4 games that I'm targeting. If you haven't noticed the 4 games that I've been saying, those are it. Yeah. But 4,200 for a guy that's getting consistency within the last 2 weeks. 8 targets, 76 yards, 70 yards, or 65 yards, 70 yards. To me, guys, no Tyrell Williams, no Quentin Cephas. If Hawkinson's out, it's going to be him and Deandre Swift. That's it.
Yep. All right.
Defense.
All right, we always start defense with Tim because he's the defense guru. What you got, Tim?
Yeah, I got a couple ones, and actually we're going to start with the one that all 3 of us have this week, and that's those same Arizona Cardinals. I think that they match up really well against Cleveland, and I think particularly their defensive line against Cleveland's offensive line. We're so used to Cleveland having this awesome offensive line, but they're actually giving up some sacks this year. So I think that there is a decent chance that Arizona can get to Cleveland, make Baker uncomfortable. And if Chubb is out, I think they become a lot more one-dimensional. And I think if they can force Baker to have to throw the ball, it could be a long day for him. So I think my favorite defense on the week is the Cardinals at 2.7. I mentioned earlier about the Cowboys at 3,200. I think Mac Jones is really going to struggle in this game. I think that they're going to I think Trayvon Diggs should play. He's probably going to shadow Jacoby Myers, and that's going to force them to have to try and beat them another way. And then I think the chalk pay down defense this week is the Detroit Lions. They're only 2,100. And Joe Burrow, as you guys know, does not have a great offensive line. They will give up some sacks. They actually have the second highest adjusted sack rate on the week, and yet they're the second lowest priced defense. So I think we've talked about not a lot of great value this week. I think it's going to be a pretty great option to pay all the way down at defense.
I like it. Now, I want to ask you real quick on that Cardinals call, because I got Cardinals too, but how much does Chandler Jones being out, how much does that hurt them, you think? You think they're still going to be a viable defense?
I do, yeah. I think it does hurt them a little bit. Obviously, he's a big part of their pass rush, but I still think that they're going to be able to put pressure on Baker. I mean, if you remember the game that Baker played against Houston, he gave up, I think, a pick and a couple of sacks against the Texans, and they have no pass rush at all, right? So I think even with Jones out, I still think that they're going to be able to put Baker in a spot where he's going to have to throw the ball. So
good point.
Yeah.
And you have one team on there that he didn't talk about, the Colts.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that nobody had them on their list. I think every week, the top price defense on DraftKings has been whoever's playing the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're not the top price defense. They're 3,500, so it's like mid-range price. Usually they're like 5,000, 4,900, 4,800, you know. So it kind of brought that like attention to me. But hey, man, like last week, the best player on their team, I know that's what Jeff said, Brandon Cook, but last week, the best player on their team was Davis Mills, apparently.
Yeah, had a game of his life, didn't he?
Yeah, how embarrassing is it for Bill Belichick right now? Tom Brady's over here winning Super Bowls, blowing out teams, and just living the life. And Bill Belichick's over here, what are they, like 2-3? I don't even know if they've won more than 2 games, but the Colts defense for the Houston Texans, I think they're coming, and the crazy thing is, like, the reason why I was shocked that you guys didn't mention them, they're the highest owned defense.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think by the time we get to Sunday, people don't pay up to 3,500 for defense. I really will be shocked if they end up being the top owned defense. People just don't pay more than $3K for defenses in general.
Oh, I lied to you. Sorry. I was looking at. I excluded a couple players from my.
Okay.
No. Yeah. I mean the Cowboys also are another defense I'm targeting.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have to eat crow because all season, and even like as a dynasty player and fantasy football player, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. I'm gonna draft CD Lamb and all this and all that. All of a sudden, the Cowboys defense is good.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, people expected them to be really, 40 points a game, and they do score a lot, but they've showed they can play some defense and run it out. Just to answer Alex's question in the chat, I do not like the Bengals defense this week. They're priced really awkwardly at 3,500. Like he just mentioned, I would rather spend the extra $100 and pay for the Colts, or save a couple $100 and pay for the Cowboys. They don't get enough of a pass rush to where I think that they're going to put enough pressure on Jared Goff to make it worth it. And they don't really get picks, right? So I don't really know that there's enough upside there, in my opinion, to make it worth it. So, no, that's a no for me on the Bengals.
All right.
Goingfor2.com's weekly stack report.
All right, Tim, I'll go to you first because Gerson doesn't have a stack listed in there. I'm sure he has one. He just didn't put it on the sheet. But Tim, go ahead and give me your stack.
I see a stack. All right. Yeah, I'm going to go with my stack anyway. I mentioned at the top of the show he was my favorite quarterback on the week. That's going to be Highland Park's own Matthew Stafford, going back to his boy Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, a tight end, and then bringing it back with Mr. Sterling Shepard.
Gerson had to make it really big. So
he did. Pull back the curtain. Gerson just made it like size 48 font, so Jeff could not possibly miss it.
What happened was because there's that blank space in the middle, and I had my screen scrolled over it. I thought that was Gerson's column, but he had one more column over where his stack is. All right, Gerson, you got your stack there, supersized.
Socially distanced.
Do I have your attention now?
I have you. Yes, you have my.
It's Mr. Jackson, Marquis Brown, Mark Andrews, and Keenan Allen, baby. And trust me, guys, I built a lineup with a lot of the running backs I said, and the tight end. Well, actually, it's Mark Andrews. And the defense, trust me, I'm giving you the hint right now. That stack and 3 of the running backs I really liked, you can make a freaking damn good roster. And that wide receiver from the Lions, DraftKings, please don't ban my account because I just basically gave out a lineup. But yeah.
All right, I have basically the similar stack, but on the other side, I have Herbert, Allen. You could put Eckler in there, I think, because he's a pass-catching running back, and then bringing it back with Hollywood. So I think that's a very popular game to stack if you're not stacking the Chiefs. Chiefs and Reds or Chiefs and Washington football team are another popular stack as well, of course. All right, let's get to our final segment.
And now, the sick call of the week.
So Tim stays hot. He's got now 3 sick calls in a row that he hit on. So Tim, are you gonna go first?
Yeah, I want to say something about this, man. So Deontay Harris scored a 72-yard touchdown on like the first drive of the game, and then I don't think they targeted him like the rest of the game. It was set up to be the greatest sick call of all time, and he ends the game with like 10 points. So I do want to mention Aaron Rasmus in the chat asked about 2 tight ends. I mentioned it earlier in the show. I think 2 tight ends is more viable this week than it's been at any point this year. So I do like the idea of running 2 tight ends. I'm going to go back to a guy that won somebody the $1 million a couple weeks ago, and that's Mr. Randall Cobb at 3,900. We talked about it with the Monroe State Brown, and there's not a lot of good options in that kind of 4K range this week if you want to pay down at wide receiver. And I think that Randall Cobb actually has an excellent matchup in the slot against the Chicago Bears. He's had some big games against him in the past, and I think that he gives you some cheap exposure to that Packers game. Aaron Rodgers also has traditionally owned the Chicago Bears. So I think a lot of things kind of line up, but since there's no clear, at least unless Tyreek Hill is ruled out, no clear 4K wide receiver, I think you can save a few hundred, pay down to Cobb, and maybe upgrade to somebody like Jonathan Taylor or one of those wide receivers we talked about.
I like it. Yeah, I think we're at that point in the season where sick calls are getting harder to come by because there's just not those dirt cheap receivers anymore. They've gotten their prices raised a little bit. But Gerson, you got a receiver that on your list there that I'm actually jealous I didn't actually think of. I actually like this sick call a lot.
I don't know what you're talking about. Right now on the sheet, I see red. That's 5 in a row hot fire sick calls of the week, man. I'm killing it, man. I'm killing it.
Yeah. No, your sick call last week was burning it up on the bench. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. My sick call was so sick that he actually was sick and didn't play in that fucking game. That fucker. I didn't even think about it until Tim messaged me. He tagged me. His sick call. It was on Twitter, right? No, yeah. Oh, you fuck. No, but he didn't play. I think I'm
now,
0
shout
for
out
4.
to Jalen Waddle for doing absolutely nothing for me last week, by the way.
For real. Rashad Bateman is the wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. He was the rookie first round pick, right, Jeff?
Yep.
He was placed on IR. Shout out to Ryan Searfoss. Yeah, I mean, he's a big Raven fan. I love Rashad Bateman. I had him ranked as, and I'm going to get burned for this, by my number 2 wide receiver in Dynasty ranking. I mean, I love this guy, and he's 3,000.
Yeah.
3,000. So if you want to put him in that Lamar Jackson stack, bring him back with him and then Keenan Allen, do like a Marquis Brown, Bateman, and Keenan Allen. I mean, that could be a good way to be contrarian, but this guy got activated. He should play this Sunday. I am a little bit worried about how many snaps he's going to play, what he's going to do, but no Sammy Watkins means that their wide receiver is thin. Yep. And they didn't draft him in the first round just to sit on the bench. He's better than Devin Duvernay. He's better than is it Jamie Proch or something like that?
James Proche.
Yeah, Porsche car, whatever the hell he is, But I love Rashad Bateman.
It's so funny because I almost picked Devin Duvernay. Like, I swear to God, I was this close to using him as my sit call. So I'm glad you picked Bateman.
Master Bateman.
All right. Yeah. I finally hit a sick call last week. It was just barely on volume alone. I had Khalil Herbert at 4K. He had 18 carries. Unfortunately, he had 2 red zone carries and didn't score. And then Williams got the vultured touchdown. I think he would have been so much better if he would have got that touchdown.
Yep.
So my sick call this week, I actually picked it before I heard the news about Mixon getting the full workload and didn't have time to pivot. So I'm going to just stick with it because why not? Chris Evans at 4K versus Detroit. He's a pass-catching running back. I thought he'd get more work than he probably will now, but I'm going to just go ahead and stay with it anyway. I usually go receiver here. I went running back for the first time all year and ended up hitting on it. So let me just stay with Chris Evans at 4K versus Detroit. Don't love it, but I had no time to pivot to anybody else, so we're just going with it. So Chris Evans it is. All right, guys, let's wrap up the podcast. Let's go around. Tim, I'll go to you first. Give him your Twitter handle and talk about the Facebook group a little bit.
Yeah, you can always find me at Keto DFS on Twitter. I also want to give a shout out to Roundtable Arena. Scott took over number 1 in the arena this week. It's been a really great battle so far. And you can definitely find us on Facebook at the Fantasy G Pod / the DFS Roundtable Facebook group. Get in there every week. We have great discussions right up to lock. And like I said, Gerson will give you the answers to the test. He'll tell you all about that here in a second.
And Gerson.
What was that, Jeff?
Go ahead.
I'm falling asleep. This show's too late, dude. Come on, man.
I don't want to get it. 1 o'clock in the morning here. And I just got off of work working 12-hour day.
Hey, I didn't tell you to go to work. You could call it off. No, you can find me at Fantasy DFS on Twitter. You can find me on the DFS Roundtable. I promise I'm going to change that name sooner or later. You can find me there on Facebook group. Tune in the Sunday show. I kid you not. Like the Sunday show, it might be just as critical as this show because I can give you the answer to the test. I give you my final thoughts. I can give you Alexander Madison for 36 fucking points, whatever the fuck he got.
Yeah.
But no, the other thing is I want to give a special shout out to all you guys that stayed up this late. Thank you very much. I know an hour later is a law on the East Coast. There's a pansy named Jeff that can't like 1 o'clock in the morning, dude. Come on, dude. But no, thank you for staying up. Another thing is that DFS Roundtable Arena League is freaking awesome, dude. Like, I wish more people could have joined because, well, not only because I can win more money, but because it just creates an environment where we're all very competitive.
Yep.
And we want to win and we want to be the best. Right now, it's crazy because we see some rosters and we're like, how did you beat me? But hey, shout out to all you guys. Thank you for tuning in.
Definitely, definitely. As always, you could follow me at Jeff Lambert 77. Follow all of our shows at the Going for Two Live Network. We're on, like I said, everything. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. We're on Facebook. We got some great shows. We have a new show on Saturday that's been, I think, their 3rd week. But check them out. They do it's called the DFS Pawn Shop. They go over some of the value plays. They have a
great show
called what do they call it? I can't think of the name of it right now. It's like legit or counterfeit, I think is what they call it. Sort of the play off the pawn shop thing. It's a pretty good show. So check them out tomorrow at I think it's 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, check out the Sunday show with Gerson, Gladys, and all the guys. So for Tim and for Gerson, I'm Jeff. We will see y'all next week and good luck this weekend.
Go Pack Go!